a member.
I don't have words. It's crazy.
Grande visited with some of the victims at Manchester hospitals today. Summer is almost here, and with it comes all of those concerts and outdoor events. And security measures here in the U.S. are being stepped up following the bombing in Manchester.
From NASCAR to outdoor festivals, police are adding layers of security following the Manchester suicide bombing. Even New York City, used to being on high alert each day for an attack, is ramping up checkpoints at this weekend's annual Governor's Ball Music Festival. Most concert goers say they're not worried.
When you come to these things, I'm not always thinking about security and safety. I'm glad that these people are here to keep us safe.
Event organizers say they've hired 500 private security guards to help police. Michelle Franson, ABC News, New York.
The city manager in Augusta, Maine, says the municipal office building had to be sprayed for bed bugs after a man threw a cup of the pest onto an office counter and about 100 of them scattered. The man apparently claimed a few days ago to the code enforcement office about the bed bugs in his former apartment, and then he left. Not long after that, though, he returned with a cup of the insects. This is ABC News.
Looks like some cable and phone companies are trying to sell home security. But when a burglar sees one of their signs in the front yard, what does it say? Oh, wow, this home has 599 channels. Or, oh, these guys have high-speed internet. But the ADT sign, it says, this family trusts the company whose name means security. So beat it. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes.
Learn more at ADT.com and to see licensing and terms and conditions.
Daria Albinger, ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont and the Pass area this morning, we can expect sunny skies at a high of 93 with winds to 25 miles an hour. Tonight, here to be clear, a low 65 with winds to 25 miles an hour. Sunday should be sunny, our high 92 at a winds to 20 miles an hour. It'll be clear and breezy Sunday night with a low of 66 with winds to 25 miles an hour. Monday should be sunny with a high of 91. For Redlands, we'll have a sunny day with a high of 94 with winds to 20 miles an hour. For Palm Springs, it'll be mostly sunny, our high 106. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Don't miss the next meeting of the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party. Our featured speaker is best-selling author John L. Hancock. His book, The Distortion of History, exposes how colleges, schools, and media have distorted our view of history for the last 50 years. Douglas V. Gibbs will continue his series on the Constitution. This month's topic, the Bill of Rights. Mark your calendar for Thursday, June 8th at 5 p.m. at the Farms House Restaurant in Banning.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Welcome. It is time for Constitutional Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs here on KMET 1490 AM. Welcome to the program. I've got Alex called in from his bunker somewhere in L.A. County. Alex, welcome to the show.
Nice to talk to you again, sir.
And I wanted to, before we get started with our guest who's waiting on the phone also with us, I'm driving up Beaumont Avenue into, towards the studio in Cherry Valley, and there's flags along both sides of the street, American flags. And then I started seeing these signs. The Cherry Festival is going on. So for those of you who enjoy the program, enjoy it. And after it's over, head on over to the Cherry Festival. It's today and tomorrow are the last 2 days of the Cherry Festival in Beaumont. And if you find Beaumont Avenue, you'll find the Cherry Festival because it's right off the way to the, what would you say, the north, the east, something like that. From that road. But anyway, check out the Cherry Festival. And then if you want to check out other things going on in the Inland Empire, the Renaissance Festival is going on in Corona from until June 25th. It's going on right now. Go to renfestcorona.com to learn more about that. We've got the Temecula Valley Balloon and Wine Festival is also going on. Its last day is tomorrow. I'm going to be there tomorrow, as a matter of fact. I'm thinking about also shooting up to the Cherry Festival, see if I can catch both of them. Today, the Riverside Juneteenth Festival is going on. And then we've got a number of other things going on. If you look it up in the Press Enterprise, happenings in Inland Empire. There's a whole list of neat stuff. One of the things I'm going to be going to is on July 1st, City of Murrieta's 26th birthday bash. That'll be going on. So looking forward to that also. Okay. That all said, back to work. Alex, we've got a guest on the line with us. His name is George Riley. And I met him during a Republican Party organization trip up in Fresno, and we've been in touch ever since. And a few days ago, or was it yesterday or the day before? I can't remember which now. He puts on his Facebook he was not received quite well when he had a few things to say about a gentleman by the name of Charles Munger. Let me explain. Charles Munger is, how do I say this? Okay, let's back up. In California, the main source of money into the Republican Party includes a large amount of money that's received from Charles Munger Jr. He writes checks for hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions, tens of millions a year into candidates so that he can wield his influence in the party. He usually bets on losing horses, collects delegates so that he can manipulate the Republican Party's direction in California. Munger is a son of a billionaire, has the money, and spends millions. And for some, the spending by the Palo Alto physicist is what keeps the GOP in California afloat. Kevin Spillane, a GOP strategist, says that if it weren't for Charles Munger, the California Republican Party would have been driven into the sea at this point. Now, others see him as a leftist infiltrator. And among the chief problems with the party, conservatives believe that conservatism, if presented properly, wins elections. Munger disagrees. Munger is a what they like to call a moderate, but in my opinion, a moderate has always been a Democrat that's just leftist Democrats just not willing to call themselves such. That said, getting back to George Riley, he's an active Republican in Sacramento, and he decided to just be a little critical at a Republican Party Central Committee meeting and was asked to leave for daring to speak ill of the Republican Party donor. Mr. Riley joins us today to discuss what happened and why the GOP in California is so full of leftist infiltrators, or we'll see if that's what he wants to talk about. Now, real quick before we bring him on, the Los Angeles Times on April 4th, so this is about a month ago, 2 months ago, had an article titled, GOP donor Charles Munger Jr. finds wealth, buys few friends. While he's pumping all this money into the party, he's sometimes considered more of an enemy than a friend by many Republicans. And that kind of ties into this. But the way the article is written, it's like he's confused. I don't get it. I pump all this money in. Why doesn't anybody like me? Kind of attitude. So let's answer that question first. George Riley, welcome to the program. Great having you, buddy.
Thank you so much, Doug. I appreciate it.
Now, we've got Charles Munger, according to the LA Times, can't even find friends. You can't even buy friends, man.
Well, in order to be able to talk about Charles Munger, you have to establish the foundation of where he came from, right? So
yeah,
the Republican Party, the Republican Party finds itself in millions of dollars of debt. It's not doing the best in the world at fundraising. It's doing more about reach out, and we had a lot of caucuses going. Especially, we had actually a very large Hispanic caucus. There was hundreds of people showing up to the convention just to come to this Hispanic caucus. It looked like a little mini California Republican Party convention to begin with.
Right.
And then Charles comes in, and he agrees to buy up all of our debt. And in exchange for money, he gets some favors. Now, one of the things that he does when he first comes to us is give us something called Prop 14. Prop 14 was a horrible thing. People were too distracted about other initiatives that were on the ballot. But Prop 14 is the top two candidates making it to the general from the primary. So if anybody's been
which has been disastrous for the party.
Absolutely. If anybody's been confronted with being a Republican and finding that there's at least one race where there's only two Democrats that you can vote for, and you say, none of these people represent me, I don't want to vote, that's Prop 14. That's Charles Munger's bill. His decision is to say, let's go ahead and cut ourselves out of many races. And in the scheme of things, it's actually created quite a bit of holes, because you can see that if people feel disenfranchised about voting for something on all of the ballots, now we find that people will maybe just go to the poll to vote for a single issue and leave the rest of the ballot blank, which only also opens everything up to voter fraud, because who's to say that if you fill in one blank and you leave the rest of your ballot blank, somebody else doesn't come along and fill those bubbles in for you?
Right.
It doesn't sound good.
And this all started with basically Charles Munger's promise to pay off the debt, save the party, and then, this kind of reminds me of Mephistopheles walking in with the contract, I'll give you everything you want. All I want is your soul.
Absolutely. And so he gets put in charge of a couple of committees, he gets some ground. Ultimately, his goal is to remove social issues from the Republican platform, and that being, the Christian values that we hold of traditional family values, marriage between a man and a woman, and abortion, which have seemed to be a big hot issue for a lot of candidates to not talk about to begin with.
Okay, now let's get back to the Prop 14 thing real quick before you go on. The top two vote getters on the general election ballot, and often that winds up to Democrats. How do we get rid of that?
Well, there would be, in order to establish it to begin with, there were provisions that required that Republicans and Democrats had to come together to establish this, because it was a constitutional amendment. And so the hard thing would be is that a lot of Democrats didn't want to buy into it. They didn't like it originally. Now they're seeing that they're getting all these benefits out of it. I don't know how anybody would be able. I mean, I know we could convince the Republican Party if we could get Charles Munger to go away and bring the conservatives back in. We could convince the GOP to go along with it, but I don't see how the Democrats would ever want to take this away.
Could the voters petition to put it on the ballot?
The only way that I think that we could even save California at this point is if Donald Trump comes in and audits California and says, what's going on in here? And he pulls down a bunch of barriers, investigates voter fraud, and exposes a lot of things that make it so that we have an avenue to come in and say, well, let's reestablish, fairness in our elections. Let's have IDs being shown when people vote. Things that are just being neglected or being told that are racist and discriminatory. You shouldn't have to show ID to vote. You have to show ID to smoke cigarettes. Now you have to be 21 to smoke cigarettes, but you don't have to show your ID to say who is going to be your legal representative. Right.
Well, I've got actually another constitutional angle here, too, which involves President Trump. In Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, it says that the United States government, that the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. In other words, a state has to be a republic, not a democracy. Now, one of the facets of it being a republic is one of the things that it used to do. Matter of fact, all the states used to do this, and Amendment 17 at the federal level encouraged the states to do this locally, is that the assembly has always been voted on by the people, but the members of the state senate were appointed by the county leadership.
Okay.
All right. So in order to return back to a Republican form of government, we need to return back to that where the state senators are not democratically voted in by the people, but are appointed by the counties. Now, if you look at this state, if you were to look at the county vote when it came to the Trump election, it looks like a landslide for Trump when you base it on number of counties. So what that would do was that would flip the Senate to red.
Well, California is already a red state anyways. Most people don't even know that. The only part that's blue is by the ocean.
Sure.
I mean, in fact, you're talking about California voted to support marriage being between a man and a woman 3 times. The only reason why marriage is not between a man and a woman is because our Attorney General didn't do her job. She refused to defend our constitutional provision because she didn't agree with what it was the voters said.
Well, and the federal judges unconstitutionally stuck their nose into it. Marriage is not a federal issue, so the federal courts have no constitutional authority to even hear those cases. And so that, in other words, the highest that case should have gone was the state Supreme Court.
Absolutely. And how did that girl get rewarded? We made her a U.S. senator.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about Kamala Harris. All right. I'm going to ask you now about the situation. What was it that you said in the Central Committee meeting about Munger that created this whole situation?
It was actually on the Facebook page. What happened was one of our people came through and posted a article from Steve Frank that had said that Charles Munger had donated money to Jerry Brown, and it was in excess of $750,000. And this has gone around to several places on Facebook. And there was dispute from our chair about whether or not it was a legitimate article that was had good grounds that he had actually done that. And then she refuted it with another article. And I actually had stepped in to try and defend my friend. And I said, well, he may or may not have done that, but he did facilitate for Prop 14, and he did facilitate to spend millions of dollars to make sure conservatives were not elected. And because of that, I was removed from the Central Committee.
So now were you a volunteer? You were voted on member? What was your position?
I was an alternate for an ex officio.
And you were removed because of a Facebook response?
Because of the threat of elected members or candidates not being able to get fundraising, or having Charles Munger say, don't donate to that person, to all the people who are donors, or Charles Munger choosing to run a candidate against somebody who took a stand against him in any kind of way.
Question for you. Has the California GOP been infiltrated by the left?
Absolutely. And
how serious is that infiltration?
My second point that I had made was that he spent millions of dollars to make sure conservatives were not elected, right?
Right.
Now, I was told that he spent $1 million to make sure Tom Del Beccaro did not go up as one of our top U.S. Senate candidates for the Republican Party. So he didn't spend money to make sure a Republican was elected. He may spend money to make sure a Republican wasn't elected. In this case, because of Prop 14, we had 2 Democrats on the ballot. So another place where he's interfered and made sure that one of our U.S. Senate candidates was a Democrat. That may or may not have happened. Tom Del Beccaro is a very popular person. A second thing that he did was he spent at least $25,000 in every Central Committee election to make sure that conservatives were not elected to the Central Committee, and he's been running around buying all the Central Committees all over California so that he can control the delegate votes. That way he can have the ability to change the platform and remove those social issues I spoke about. There's been some wisdom in our California Republican Party chairman to know that there's a left branch and a right branch of the Republican Party. It's true. And we do both need each other. You can't say I can have a left hand and a right hand, and I would do better if I just had a right hand. I understand that, especially in California, that we need our actual moderate Republicans. But in this particular case, you see that they're going to say that we don't need the right hand. We don't need the right side of the Republican Party, and they want to disenfranchise the Christians, that the only reason why they vote for the most part for Republicans at all is because they're the one that most identifies with them.
One of my listeners is communicating with me through Facebook at facebook.com/Douglas V. Gibbs. I do have my messenger on, so for those of you who are Facebook friends, facebook.com/Douglas V. Gibbs, feel free to send me a message. And she has a question here. I want to try and turn this around, but I'm seriously considering leaving the state. So what can she do to try and turn it around?
Well, you know what? There was an initiative brought forward by Assemblywoman Shannon Grove that I completely believe would change the game entirely.
Yeah.
And that's a part-time.
And by the way, she's an incredible individual and assembly person.
Absolutely. And that would be a part-time legislature. And since you're familiar with the law, there's a concept called the umbrella of the law. And that means that one size fits all. If I write a law at federal level from Georgia to California, North Dakota to Texas, it has to be applicable and it has to be fair and reasonable. So if I was going to speak about state law, I would have to say any laws that were written at the state level should apply in San Bernardino, should apply in San Francisco, should apply in Orange County and Placer County, and they should all be reasonable, which tells me that most laws, if you're reasonable and rational, should be done at county level or at city level. And so
well, that's called localism, and that's what the founders intended. That's the reason why the federal government doesn't have any authorities regarding the internal issues regarding the state. Now, we're upon a break, and I'm actually 4 minutes past the break. It's a soft break, so I could kind of extend this. Are you able to come back with us after the break?
Absolutely. Anything for you, brother.
All right. So, everybody, we're going to break, but we'll be right back with George Riley from Sacramento and this discussion about the infiltration into the Republican Party. Right after this break, we will continue the discussion.
You got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at All-Star Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of wreck and roll.
Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
Don't miss the next meeting of the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party. Our featured speaker is best-selling author John L. Hancock. His book, The Distortion of History, exposes how colleges, schools, and media have distorted our view of history for the last 50 years. Douglas V. Gibbs will continue his series on the Constitution. This month's topic, the Bill of Rights. Mark your calendar for Thursday, June 8th at 5 p.m. at the Farms House Restaurant in Banning.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome welcome back. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs right here on KMET 1490 AM. I was, matter of fact, in a meeting yesterday with a new host that is probably going to be coming on board in a month or two, and he's an old friend of mine. So once it's official, I'll let you know. He's excited about coming to KMET. He's going to be on 5 days a week if he decides to go forth with the contract. And I'm telling you, KMET just keeps getting better. Let me put it that way. And we're also looking to expanding this program. We are 2 hours now, but, 2 hours is just not good enough for me. I want more. So if you want to advertise on this program or you want to be a sponsor, contact me at constitutionspeaker at yahoo.com. All right. Welcome back. We have on the air with us George Riley. He is a Republican that lives in Sacramento. He's very active, very engaged. And the Central Committee said, oh, you have some rough words about Munger? You're gone. So we have him on the air with us. So thank you, George, for spending the time on the program because this is important stuff. I don't think people realize how rigged the game is in California. And when I say rigged, I mean that's an understatement.
Yes, I absolutely agree. There have been a lot of cases where they've found people exchanging out ballots in the back room. Been reports of people taking people on buses from voting place to voting place and saying, well, at this poll your name is this and at this poll your name is that. You don't have to show ID. There's allegations of people saying that dead people vote. I know that I have been walking precincts and have come up to a house that was a registered person for someone I wanted to talk to and found out that that person was deceased. However, they have not made any kind of actual attempt to fix the issue, which, in my opinion, could be simply fixed by the moment that they have a certificate of death issued, that it's sent to notify Secretary of State, and they're flagged. I mean, this is 2017. A 13-year-old with a phone can do amazing things on an app, but they can't prevent a dead person from being able to vote. I don't know what to say about this. This is our
now, for one of you, whoever it is, there's a microphone getting bumped, so just be aware. We can hear it on the air. Okay. Now, that
read a thing that says that Al Capone in 1926 said, vote early and vote often.
Vote early. Yeah. Real quick, because this is one of the topics we're going to talk about today, and it kind of ties into what we're talking about with George. I wanted to ask George if he was familiar with what's going on, especially going on down here. Is that 26 cities so far have folded to a Malibu lawyer, Kevin Spillane, who is threatening cities to abandon their at-large voting system when it comes to council members and to go to a districting so that the districts can be gerrymandered, with the minority section so they can vote in their candidate and put more minorities, quote unquote, on the councils. And Palmdale tried to stand up to him a few years ago and wound up losing $4.5 million in a settlement. News just about a week ago that Huntington Beach has decided to stand against it. Is going to fight it, and is willing to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. Have you heard about this battle over districting?
Well, it's not anything new. It's been going on for a long time. I've even seen liberals putting out videos. George Takei had a great video that was showing the gerrymandered districts all throughout the country. And if you take away the red or the blue and you look at just the black and white issue, some of those districts are, you got to say, how does a reasonable, rational person say that this is a fair thing that people should be participating in, or anybody should buy into it to begin with?
Well, and the thing is, the accusation is that the white people are voting in blocks to keep minorities off the council. So therefore, in order for a minority to have a chance, because all the whites in the city are racist, there has to be a minority district. Now that said, I believe that Huntington Beach has a a really good chance. The courts could be in their favor, and here's why. The Supreme Court tossed part of the Federal Voting Rights Act in 2013 in Shelby County versus Holder, and in doing so, the court emphasized the importance of evidence in determining whether there is racial discrimination in any particular jurisdiction that Schenkman is just not capable of presenting. And what Schenkman does, he just makes the accusation of racism. There's no evidence, but the cities fall like dominoes because of that win against Palmdale. But now, if they use the precedents of Shelby County versus Holder in 2013, the precedent of that case, they could force the California Voting Rights Act to be tossed out because of its vagueness, since its evidentiary standards are so low that it allows virtually any candidate to challenge an election loss, as being the case of racism. So, and I'm very jazzed because to give you a quote from the Huntington Beach's city attorney, Michael Gates, we are prepared to vigorously defend any lawsuit. So it looks like Huntington Beach is finally the one that's going to push back and push back hard. So real quick, because I want to get back to real quick to get back to you, George, and our discussion with you. I want to bring on board Alex. Alex, you heard what we talked about earlier about what Mr. Munger does with the Republican Party and uses his wealth to manipulate and agitate and to mold the Republican Party into what he wants it to be. And so my question for you, Alex, is well, do you have a question for Mr. Riley, or do you have a comment that you want to add to our discussion so far?
Well, I'm just disappointed that more conservatives don't pony up their big money in terms of funding movies like The Enemy Within, in terms of fighting these lawsuits. It's just a fact that conservatives know the value of a dollar. They regard a dollar as something worthwhile, whereas these leftists think that it's simply monopoly money to manipulate the system. It's really disgusting.
Well, and the thing is, what he'll do is he'll sometimes, like I said earlier, he'll bet on a losing horse. Even if there's a losing horse in, let's say, a senatorial race or congressional race, they still get delegates. And he says, hey, I know you lost, but I gave you money, so I get to choose one or two of your delegates. Matter of fact, I was talking, and I won't use the name, but a very, very, very conservative representative from down here. I talked to him about it, and I asked him, I said, did Charles Munger approach you? He says, absolutely, he gave me money. And what do you want in return? That I would pick one delegate from a list of names that he gave me.
Well, we've talked before about how hypocritical the Democrats are, and this is just one more example. All they can do is complain about the influence of big money in elections. And yet when you turn around, there's Bing. There's George
They're the ones
Soros.
with the big money influencing elections. All right. Now, getting back to that. So I want to get back to that LA Times article I read earlier or mentioned earlier that, Mr. Munger has all this money, but he can't seem to have any friends in the Republican Party. So here's my question for you, George. What percentage of the Republican Party do you think is sick of this or doesn't like it and is aware of what Mr. Munger is doing?
Well, before I answer that, I would like to say maybe we should make a revision of the article's title and call it, no matter how much money he's got, not one Republican can be elected in his county. It's been brought up to my attention that in his own district, nobody in the Republicans have been elected. So how is this guy who thinks that he has so much influence and is an ardent Republican going to prove that to me when he won't even help people in his own district get elected? I don't understand that at all. But as far as your question is concerned, I would think that it's 75%. I would think about 50% of that are people who are put into a corner and pinned and said, if you speak out against things, there will be consequences.
The money's more important than their ideals, apparently.
Well, I mean, obviously, if the guy is going to spend $25,000 to make sure that people don't get elected in the Central Committee, if he's going to spend $1 million to make sure his U.S. Senate candidate that he doesn't want to get elected, make sure that that person doesn't get elected, if he's going to make sure that he does whatever he can to go up against anybody who voices anything against him, that he ostracizes them, that he labels them crazy, that he does whatever it takes to make sure that that person is not going to be happy with their voice, and that they're going to give up their voice to have whatever it is that they're trying to have peace of mind and fight for the good fight. That's not democracy. That's not conservatism. That's not a friend of the Republican Party. I don't know how he can sit there and try and call himself any of those things. I wouldn't call him my friend.
Then let's go back to him personally, because we talked about infiltrators in general. I believe he is an infiltrator. He is a leftist saying he's a Republican, but he's nothing of the sort.
Well, what's happened is that the Democrat Party has become the Communist Party. And because of that, Democrats have fled from the Democrat Party and come to the Republican Party, and they say, there's no place here in the Republican Party for me. And so they've pushed over and they say, we need to appeal to the moderates. We need to appeal to the moderates. And they push everything left and they push everything left until they sculpt our platform into being what the Democrat Party was. And so now they want the Republican Party to be the party where people are not ready to accept communism yet. We will be the new Democrat.
Do they not realize, though, it was those ideas that moved it towards Marxism, that made it become the Communist Party it is today?
Well, the word that comes to mind, and I'm sure my friend Alex, being a Marine, will be very familiar with, is sellout. And, you know, that pesky soul gets in your way when you're trying to be in politics. And, you know, for $5, you can alleviate yourself of that.
A sellout. So we've got a party full of sellouts.
Yes, sir.
I'm reading a book right now called Sellout, which is about the Clinton impeachment and how the Republican senators wouldn't even look at the evidence. This is a member of the establishment, their establishment. The sellout was the man that wrote the book. It was just heartbroken.
Well, you tell me why Bill Clinton can go on a plane and talk to a judge, and it's not a conflict of interest, and everything is okay. But if there was a rumor that Donald Trump had spoken to somebody who was Russian, and they called home to Russia one time, you know, all of a sudden he needs to be under investigation, and it's big news.
Well, the judicial branch is supposed to be the weakest of three branches. It's supposed to apply the law to the cases. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives them the authority to strike down executive orders. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives them the authority to strike down law. They can write an opinion that they believe the law is unconstitutional, but they're not supposed to be able to strike it down. That's a legislative action which belongs solely to the legislative branch. That said,
so is making laws, Doug.
Well, they've abandoned the rule of law. They've now it's the rule of man, their ideology, their political opinion, and that's not supposed to have anything to do with their rulings. The law and the law only is supposed to have to do with their rulings. Apply the law to the cases. So first of all, they shouldn't have even been looking at this executive order case. But even if they could and did, the laws that the president is executing are in that executive order. His job is to execute the law. The law that he is executing, delegating down to his agencies to execute through that executive order, are listed and are constitutional laws. Article 1, Section 9 gives Congress the authority to make laws prohibiting any persons, from entering this country regardless, there's nothing about religious tests. Now, I know that there was a law about 65 years ago that says, well, you can't do it because of nationality. Well, then write a law to change it. But the problem is, when it comes to the congressional Republican critters, is that they don't have the testicular fortitude to do it. They're either afraid, or they're ignorant, or they're a part of the problem. And in many cases, they are a part of the problem. They are completely complicit. That said, we got to go to break again. George, man, I'm really enjoying having you on the program. You are a wealth of information. You're welcome to stay with us through one more segment till the top of the hour, and then when we go to the second hour, I'll have to let you go because I got a lot of stuff to cover. But if you want to stay with us, you're welcome to stay with us.
No, that would be great, and I'll let you know that you're so important that I actually have a buddy running for governor right now, John Cox, and I'm trying to set up a party for him, but I think that you're very important, so I'm going to wait.
I appreciate that. In fact, I had John Cox on my radio program about 6 months ago. But that's a different discussion for a different time. Let's go to break. Listeners, I hope you're enjoying this, because we're going to bring George Riley back for the final segment of the first hour. Then in the second hour, we're going to go through our all-star collision big stories of the week. Trump's travel ban seeks new life. Trump pulls out of the Paris Climate Accord. San Diego School District bows to Islam. Rex Tillerson, that Ramadan denier, and more. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
The true patriots of All-Star Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by All-Star Collision is washed, detailed, the headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off, or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
Don't miss the next meeting of the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party. Our featured speaker is best-selling author John L. Hancock. His book, The Distortion of History, exposes how colleges, schools, and media have distorted our view of history for the last 50 years. Douglas V. Gibbs will continue his series on the Constitution. This month's topic, the Bill of Rights. Mark your calendar for Thursday, June 8th at 5 p.m. at the Farms House Restaurant in Banning.
Welcome back, Constitutional Radio, right here on KMET 1490 AM. That last ad you heard, the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party's monthly meeting at the Farms House Restaurant right there off of the Highland Springs exit and the 10. I will be there this Thursday night beginning at 5 o'clock. They also will have John L. Hancock with his Distortion of History presentation. And I'm going to tell you, it is an incredible presentation. I'm excited to hear it again. I want you to hear it. Come to the Farms House Restaurant on Thursday at 5 p.m. to hear the Distortion of History and my presentation on the Bill of Rights. Also tonight in Menifee, 5 o'clock from 5 till 7 at Myrna's Cafe, 26850 Cherry Hills Boulevard in Menifee, right off of the McCall off-ramp, will be the Constitution Association monthly dinner meeting. The speaker is Sean Flynn, economics professor from Claremont College, and he will be talking about the economics of Obamacare and why the Republicans are having such a difficulty getting rid of this thing. Why don't we just repeal it? He'll talk about also how the American system for healthcare has been used in other parts of the world and has been successful. More successful than ours. Why? Because we have not been using our own system for healthcare. That and more at the Constitution Association monthly meeting tonight. Check-in is at 5. Program begins at 5:30 at Myrna's Cafe in Menifee. Learn more at constitutionassociation.com, constitutionassociation.com. And coming up later on this month, we also have go to mtra.club for the Myriad of Temecula Republican Assembly, mtra.club. We're going to have John Sullivan, one of the producers of the Gosnell movie. Looking forward to that. So, good stuff coming up. Be involved. Be there. This is Douglas V. Gibbs on Constitution Radio, KMET 1490 AM. With us on the phone, we have George Riley. He is a Republican, an active Republican up in the Sacramento area. We also have Alex Ferguson with us, as always, every week. And Dennis should be arriving in the studio any minute now. So we'll get Dennis's take on a lot of what we've been talking about. So it's a pleasure having all of you listeners. We have Chris listening on Facebook. And if you want to communicate with me, all right, you don't want to call in, you're nervous about calling, 951-922-3532, no problem. Just call into the show, just get on Facebook, facebook.com/Douglas V. Gibbs, and message me. That way, you know, it has to hear your voice, but you still get your question on the air. That's the way to participate. All right. Yeah, Alex, did you have something?
Yeah, I was talking about David Shippers in this book, Sellout, and how the establishment does not attack the establishment. But that's only true when you're talking about Republicans.
Right.
When you're talking about Democrats, they will go after, you know, like the Democrats have an instinct for the jugular, and the Republicans have an instinct for the capillary. It's obvious that the Democrats right this moment are trying to crucify Trump on trumped-up charges. There's no evidence, and they're going after him viciously. So it's only the Republicans, I think, that respect the establishment.
Well, the thing is, when you say the establishment, that's the bureaucratic machine. And, you know, George, you know, we hear all the time people say, well, there's no difference between the Republican and Democrat Party. Well, actually, there is. Otherwise, there wouldn't be debate in Congress. But when it comes to the actual machine, the machinery, the bureaucratic machinery, staffers and, you know, and the cogs and all that, there really isn't a whole lot of difference. How do we resolve that?
We primary them.
Well, you have to be able to take away the power of the major entities that give the cash donations, that drive the elections, and give it back to the power of the people.
Right.
There's been initiatives that come out all the time. One recently, Prop 35, is called the No Special Interest Initiative. It limited contributions coming from corporations, especially major corporations, and from unions. So if you look at the dynamic of who it is via party, it said that the unions are the major driver for the Democrats and corporations are the major driver for the Republican people. So if you were to take those out of the equation and you said only contributions given by the individual are limited by PACs in whatever way that they can constrain them to small amounts, then you see that the politicians are now forced to go back out into the world and communicate with their constituents in order to fundraise to be able to get money to stay in their positions.
I'm not in full agreement, and here's why. Because I recognize that the big money is just necessary. It's just a fact of life. But I think the way to resolve it is full transparency. Let's make these politicians like race car drivers and all of their donors. Just they wear a patch on their, their driver's uniform. A patch of who, so we know who's been giving them money and who they're beholden to. I guarantee you, with full transparency, the game would change.
I remember this initiative. This wasn't very long ago, and I very much enjoyed the modeling of the people coming in wearing those little outfits. But I can see that that those major donors are listed on the Secretary of State websites, and we rely on them for fundraising at organizational level. I myself have been a campaign manager for statewide candidates as well as my local Congress district, and I know that those things are published. It's just that they're not promoted.
Right.
And when you say that, Doug, I wonder, do you literally mean that you want them to wear patches when they're on the floor?
Yeah, I think that would be hilarious, too. It'd be entertaining on top of that.
But would it be professional? Would you say this person represents me, Exxon going across their back? Because,
yeah.
I mean...
Well, and if they run out of room, they can have little flags just put on their shoulders.
It's just how do you...
No, okay. Maybe I'm being a little ridiculous, but you know what I mean. I believe in full disclosure. And what happens is a lot of times due to creative media outlets and media releases, you really don't know. Even though you're supposed to. I mean, unless you know where to look, you're not going to know. I think if the American people were fully aware of the games.
Well, put it on your website.
The problem is, too, we have a media that's not compliant with us either.
Yeah. Well, the answer is just what you're saying. It's education. So, I mean, I used to wake up every day to the Daily File. Most people don't know what the Daily File is. All of the committee hearings, for the most part, are published on TV or on the internet, and you can look at it. Right. Most people don't watch that. There's got to be criticism coming down on those kind of things because you know that the Democrats come in and they give directive to move the cameras. So while the cameras are still recording the hearings, they're not necessarily showing things. I mean, I've been at pro-life rallies over a bill where there have been like 300 people show up to protest the bill. There have been like 7 people on the other side that were supporting the abortion bill. They showed the camera and they showed it in a way so that it looked like the numbers were equal. And when the people came up and kept talking and kept talking and kept talking and it had to be published, they moved the camera so you couldn't see the line. You couldn't see how many more people were there. And then they report, hey, it's about equal representation on both sides for or against the bill. So, I mean, like, if people are not going to sit there and hold these people accountable, you can get these videos. You can get these videos and you can put them in a category by the legislator. And then when they come up for re-election, you can say, okay, did you guys know in this district that this is how your guys' representative has been representing you? This is how they voted? I mean, they need to have a scorecard. They need to have those videos publicized because a lot of the things that they do is Democrat strategy is they prey on the fact that their constituents don't know what they say. They don't know what they vote.
Well, the thing is that a lot of this it is published, but the problem is, Joe Schmo, he gets up early to go to work, grabs a quick bite of breakfast, goes out the door. Mom is, getting the kids ready for school. She goes out the door. They go to work, they come home, they got soccer practice, they've got, dinner with the family, then they've got, this come up and that come up, and then, family members, when do they squeeze it in is usually now. I know that's for lack of a better way of putting it, a very poor excuse because, when I was driving a big rig for 14 hours a day, I still was teaching Constitution classes and I was completely aware what was going on. But the average person, it's not important to them because the day in, day out activities of their life doesn't give them time to even care.
Well,
so it has to be so at the tip of their fingers. So easy to access that they can't help but stumble upon it. And we got like less than a minute left, so go ahead and wrap that up.
Well, you got to make it so that they realize how it affects them. Really, they're not. You're talking about voter psychology. People vote, and this is all over the place, whether you like it or not, based on how they think your name looks on a piece of paper. They don't even know what you look like. They don't. It says businessman. Nobody knows what that means.
That's it. It's time to go to the break. We'll see you after this top of the hour break with the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week. Thank you, George, for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
Be right back.
The proceeding was a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station.